Welcome to Playback with another episode of History. Today, we're diving into what might be the greatest story ever told, the story of us. It's a mystery that stretches across continents and thousands of years, a story of how our species went from the very edge of extinction to, well, every corner of the planet. And it all starts with this one single, absolutely staggering number, 10,000. Geneticists are pretty sure that at one point, this was it. This was the entire global population of Homo sapiens. Just 10,000 breeding pairs. We weren't a dominant species, we were an endangered one. Our story almost ended before it even really began.
And that's the central mystery we're unpacking today. How did this tiny, fragile group of survivors pull off the greatest journey in the history of life? The clues? Well, they're buried all around us, in ancient climate records, in fossils, and deep within our own DNA.
Our story begins where all human stories do, in Africa. Homo sapiens show up on the scene around 300,000 years ago, before the vast majority of our time on this planet. We're talking nearly 200,000 years. We didn't go anywhere. We were basically trapped, an African species boxed in by brutal deserts and a wild, unpredictable climate. What's truly hard to wrap your head around is just the sheer scale of time we're talking about here. For millennia upon millennia, we weren't masters of the planet. We were just trying to hang on. We lived through mega droughts that pushed our numbers right back to the brink. We were just another species, really, fighting for a foothold. So, what changed? What finally unlocked the gate out of our ancestral home? Well, the first major clue in our investigation isn't a tool or a fossil. It's the climate. It turns out the Earth itself kind of gave us an opening. You know these subtle wobbles in our planet's orbit? They dramatically changed the weather patterns, and every 20,000 years or so, the Sahara, our biggest barrier, transformed. It became this green, inviting corridor of grasslands and rivers, a pathway out. But the journey wasn't a simple one-time event. Humans followed these green corridors out of Africa many times. We found fossils in the Middle East from over 100,000 years ago, but these were false starts. They were dead ends. These groups died out, either because the climate turned against them or they just couldn't compete with other humans already there. Their journey stopped right there. But all the evidence we have today points to one specific migration. One small group that made it where all the others had failed. And this is the journey that leads directly to every single one of us. The big moment happened right here, at a place called the Gate of Tears. Now, during an ice age, sea levels were way lower, which shrunk the gap between Africa and Arabia to just a few miles. And sometime around 70,000 years ago, one intrepid group, we're maybe talking only a few hundred people, made that cross. And how do we know this? We have the genetic smoking gun. Every single person alive today outside of Africa, yep, that includes you, can trace their ancestry back to one specific DNA signature called haplogroup L3. It's the ultimate genetic breadcrumb trail left by that one small band of pioneers. From that single crossing came billions and billions of people. It's just incredible. Now, once they were out, they didn't just wander into the harsh desert. They were smart. They hugged the coast, basically using the ocean as a giant, reliable supermarket. This coastal highway let them expand incredibly fast, generation by generation, pushing them east all the way to India. As our ancestors spread out, a whole new reality started to sink in. They'd conquered the climate, they'd figured out the geography, but now they faced a brand new challenge. They were not alone. I mean, just think about the sheer audacity of this next step. By 50,000 years ago, these folks reached Southeast Asia and found themselves staring out at the open ocean. To get to Australia, they had to plan, build real boats, and navigate across almost 90 kilometers of deep water. They became the world's first mariners, and in doing so, they conquered a whole new continent filled with bizarre, giant animals. While some groups went south, others pushed north into Asia and Europe. They were stepping into lands that were already home to our ancient relatives, the Neanderthals and the Denisovans. For a long time, we thought the story was one of violent conquest. But genetic science has uncovered a much more complex and, frankly, a much more interesting truth. The proof is right here, inside of us. We didn't just replace them, we interbred with them. Most people with non-African ancestry today carry around 2% Neanderthal DNA, plus bits and pieces from other ancient humans. We literally carry the genetic ghosts of the cousins we met along the way.
Okay, so by 20,000 years ago, we had people in Africa, Asia, Europe, and Australia. Only one massive landmass was left untouched by human feet, the Americas. The key to this final chapter is a place called Beringia. During the last ice age, sea levels dropped so much that they exposed a huge subcontinent connecting Siberia and Alaska. This wasn't just some frozen bridge people sprinted across, it was a homeland in its own right, a sanctuary where people lived for thousands of years, stuck between giant ice sheets on one side and the harsh Arctic on the other. Then, as the world started to warm up, the path south finally opened. There are two big theories on how it happened. Some groups probably walked down an ice-free corridor that opened up inland, but there's more and more evidence pointing to another, faster route, a kelp highway along the Pacific coast, followed by boat, allowing these pioneers to populate two whole continents in what was geologically the blink of an eye. And with that, the Great Migration was finally complete. We had reached every habitable corner of the planet. But this journey didn't just change our location, it fundamentally changed who we are. Spreading across the globe forced us to innovate. In isolation, scattered groups of people faced totally unique problems, and they came up with some absolutely genius solutions. From kayaks in the Arctic to navigating by the stars in the Pacific to the invention of farming in the Middle East, our global migration was really the engine of human creativity. This journey is also what created all our beautiful diversity. The different shades of our skin, the textures of our hair, these are really recent, superficial adaptations to different climates. Genetically, the difference between any two people on Earth is tiny. We are all descendants of that same small band of African pioneers. We're one big, closely related family. When you strip it all away, this is who we are. We're the species that just couldn't stand still. We are programmed by this deep history to be explorers, to always wonder what lies just beyond the horizon. It's our defining feature. From a tiny group in Africa, we walked and we sailed and we paddled our way across the entire world. We walked out of the cave, and eventually, we walked on the moon. No matter how far we go, we are still telling that same ancient story. This ancient impulse, this restlessness, it's still with us. It drives our science, our art, our constant need to explore. And it leaves all of us with this one last profound question to think about. Thanks for joining us as we piece together this incredible story. Hope to see you for the next episode of History.